Hi, my name is Penny, and as usual, I'm here to talk about some bookish things. Specifically, today, I wanted to talk about my top books in 2019. But as I said in my previous video, I read 250 books in 2019, and it is way too hard to pick just a few favorite books from all of those. So instead, I've split it up by genres. My last video was all about my favorite high fantasy books of the year. In this video, I'm going to talk about my favorite low fantasy books, but I always hate the term low fantasy because it sounds like an insult, and that's not what I mean. What I mean is more urban fantasy, magical realism, books that are fantastical but set more in a modern real world setting. But before I get into the top 5, I did just want to mention a book that I'm about to start reading. I expect that I'm going to finish reading it in 2019, but I haven't read it yet, so I can't put it in this list, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in this list. So we're going to mention it anyway. That is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the first book in a new series, which is a follow-on from the Raven Cycle series by Maggie Stiefvater. I just love this world, and you can't really talk about this book without spoiling the first book, but if you haven't read the Raven Cycle, then I really recommend you do, because you're going to hear people talking about this series all the time. Because even though I haven't read this book yet, I have no doubt that this series is going to be amazing. I love Maggie Stiefvater when she's at her best, and I think this is going to be it. I hope so. But since this is just like a mention, the real number 5 is also by Maggie Stiefvater, and that is The Scorpio Races. This is a book I listened to on audiobook this year, and I do really recommend the audiobook because the narrators do beautiful Irish accents, and I think it really adds to the story. I know Maggie Stiefvater always puts a lot of effort into her audiobooks with adding music, and so I really recommend all her books on audiobook, to be honest. It's a great way to reread books that you really love. I also re-listened to the Raven Boys books this year on audiobook, and I thought those audiobooks are also really wonderful to listen to. The Shiver series audiobooks are really great to listen to. Anyway, this is not a video about Maggie Stiefvater. This is a video about my favorite books of the year. So The Scorpio Races is about this young girl named Puck who is an orphan. She lives with her brothers in this house, and they're about to lose the house. There's also this boy, I have forgotten his name, but he works for this stable and he would really like to run things himself. So they both need money, and the way that they decide to get some money is to enter this horse race. As on this island where they live, horses regularly come out of the sea, these seahorse type creatures. I forget what they're actually called in the book. Anyway, they're very violent, but you can catch them, and every year there is a race of these horses. It's very violent. People normally die. In fact, I think Puck's father died, or the boy's father died. Parents die in this race, so it's a very violent thing. People aren't very happy with Puck entering the race because it's normally only men that race, but I just love the characters in this story, and I really recommend this book. Then another book that I really loved this year was The Dark Vault by Victoria Schwab. In fact, this is actually a wrap-up of the Archived and the Unbound, so 2 books, and I will admit, only the Archived is really on this list. The Unbound let me down a little bit. Sometimes that happens. But the first book, The Archived, is about this library of dead people's memories. So locked up in this library are these, essentially it seems like it's dead people, but it's really only their memories. And we follow this girl who is kind of responsible, or one of the people who's responsible for tracking down these dead people's memories when they escape the library. She's also dealing with a lot of grief, and her family has just picked up and moved to a new place after her brother has died, and her grandfather has also died, and he was the only one who really knew that this is what she did because he used to do the same thing, and that's how she's ended up doing it. I really loved this world and this concept of this library of the dead, and I thought the way that it dealt with grief was also really beautiful and wonderful. I love the imagery of the keys that's throughout this book, and I really look forward to at some point Victoria Schwab getting back to this world, as well as the TV show that's going to be made of this show. So lots to look forward to with this series. Then number 3 is a book that I was looking forward to for a very long time, and that is Magic Triumphs by Alona Andrews. So this is the 10th book in the Kate Daniels series, which follows this girl named Kate Daniels, who is a mercenary in this world where magic has started to come back. So it's set in Atlanta, a little bit ahead of now, but magic has started to come back in waves, and when magic is working, technology isn't working. When technology is working, magic doesn't work. It goes back and forth. But magic coming back has made the world a very dangerous place. A lot of the magic is quite out of control, and Kate Daniels, our mercenary friend, is helping people to deal with what's going on with that magic. She also has a very magically powerful family, but they're not a very happy family, and throughout the series we're building up to her final confrontation with her father, and this book is the confrontation. And I thought it did a really good job of wrapping everything up. It didn't exactly go how I wanted, but I was definitely happy with this as an ending for a series. I really love the unique take on vampires and shapeshifters and necromancers, and just different mythology from all over the world gets wrapped up into these stories, because Kate Daniels is an expert on different kinds of mythology. And the magic that comes back is very dependent on people's beliefs. So mythological creatures everywhere. I do think the first couple of books in this series can be a bit hard to get through. Each one is kind of like a murder mystery normally, or there's some kind of mystery that Kate is trying to solve. But sometimes the first couple of books have a little bit of info dumping, so you have to get past those first couple of books. But once you do, I'm just sure that you would love the snarky way that Kate Daniels talks, and her relationship with Curran, although sometimes unhealthy. I think it shows how Kate kind of deals with that. And I'm actually just really sad that this series is over. There are going to be more books set in the same world, and I hope that they will include a lot of the same characters. Then number 2 is another audiobook that I listened to from the library, and that is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. I only read this recently. We basically follow a bunch of different magicians as they prepare to participate in this tournament, where the house of the winner of the tournament will gain control of this secret underground magical society in New York. When I think about this book, I always think of the main character as being Sydney, who is this very powerful mage, but she has also come out of this dark magical organization, and she has plans to take that organization down, and her whole purpose of entering this tournament is in fact to change the way that the magical society works. And I really enjoyed her storyline, and all the other characters in this world were great as well, but Sydney was definitely my favorite. And there's a sequel to this book coming out next year, which I'm very excited about. Then the number 1 in this group, I have seen it listed in different genres. I've seen some people try to argue that it's a horror or a thriller or magical realism, but it's definitely set in our real world with magical elements, so it belongs in this group, and that is Middlegame by Sean M. Maguire. This is another one where I got it out of the library, but once I have the money, I definitely plan to buy my own copy. I think this was just so different from so many other books. We follow these 2 twins that have been created through alchemy as they try to figure out their powers, and also just figure out the sibling relationship that they have discovered between the 2 of them. At the same time, they're being manipulated by other people who want to use their alchemical powers. Shauna Maguire is using this same very fairy tale, whimsical voice, but at the same time, she's using the way that it's written to analyze the way that society works and question the way that society works. This is another one where I definitely think that some people would consider it to be a bit slow, but if you appreciate the way that she's constructing this prose and constructing this world, then I think that you would love Middlegame. Trigger warnings for suicide. There is definitely some parts in this book that are quite intense, so that's something to be aware of going into it. But personally, I really enjoyed how this book made me feel, and it was just so unique and interesting to read. So those are the top 5 low fantasy, if you want to call it that, low fantasy books of 2019. Do let me know if you've read any of these books. Did you enjoy them as much as I did? Or do you think there are other fantasy books that I might enjoy even more? Let me know, and keep an eye out for the rest of my favorite books in 2019. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.